Now, although selection in COMOSYS is really fast and really convenient with on-the-fly filtering, as you know, you can just select stuff and say enter, and it's going to group stuff for you, and then you can provide subgroups or group them according to different criteria, etc. But there's still some other selection-related commands which perhaps would be nice to know. So if we go to the edit menu over here under the select menu, there are several commands over here. I'm not going to mention all of them, but a few might be helpful. So there's one which is called line selection. And line selection, basically what it does is if you just draw any line like that, it's going to select anything which comes which hits that line. So from the start point to the end point, if anything is intersecting with that line in any way or form, then this command of line selection is going to help you do that. Now, another useful command over here is the select same color objects. So basically, if any object has the same color, it'll select that. But the thing to remember is that only the objects which are visible on the screen which are of the same color will be selected. So for example, if I were to select this beam, it's going to select all the objects which have the same color. But if I were to zoom out, you would see that the things which are not on the screen at that which were not on the screen at that point were not selected. So you have to remember that it only works with whatever is visible on the screen at that point. Another useful feature for the selection command is that you can also select objects according to when they were last modified, because sometimes there's the whole project goes through a history, and you want to, for example, remember which ones were had I modified in January or June or whatever. So I know that this particular one is a very old building. We started modeling it in very late, I think December of 2011, and it went all the way till June of 2012. So if you go to your select menu, and there's a select by date option, and if you press the shift key, it'll open up and it'll give you a modified after or modified before option. And you can select both of them as well. If I were to go in there and say modified before and open this up and select my year as maybe 2012, and then I say January, and then I say 15th, maybe 15th of January of 2012. So I want to see which objects were entered and modified before that date. And if I just say OK, it's going to do a selection in the background, and it's going to select those objects. And then you can right click and you can say show only, and that'll tell you that these were the objects which we were working on during those dates. So that's a useful feature to have. Now, another useful selection feature which we have is what we call the selection assistant. Now, as you know that every object, every part, let's take this brace for instance, it may have some cuts on it. So you might have cut this part. It may have some welds on it, etc. But they're not always easy to find, and they're not always visible. And sometimes you want to find out what cuts and what welds are associated with this particular object. So what you do is you just select that object, and you go to your to the edit menu and the select command over there, and you go to selection assistant. What it'll do is it will select anything which is associated with this object, whether it's a weld or a joint or a cut or a point or anything basically. So if you press that right now, if you see that it says one object selected, but when I click on the selection assistant button, immediately it says 15 objects selected. So it has selected in the background anything which is associated with this part. And if I were to just now press enter, it's going to tell me that there are 2 cuts on it, which is selected in the background. There are 8 welds associated with this part. There's 1 profile, which is basically itself. The 2 joints, a few points, the end points, etc. And now what you can do is you can just say right click, say show only, And when you do that, the visibility of the cuts is turned off. But if I turn it on, you will see that it has selected those cuts which were associated with with that object. And if I turn on the welds, you'll see the welds which are associated with that object, and so on and so forth. So this is a very convenient way to find any objects which are associated with a particular object. And the way this command works is recursive, which means that if I select this one and I say selection assistant, it's going to select the 15 objects. But I can, if I click on selection assistant again, now it's going to collect all the objects which are associated with these 15 objects. So it's going to widen my selection list. So if I click on it again, you can see that it has selected other objects as well, because they were connected to this one in some way or form. And then if I click on selection assistant again, it's going to keep growing that list through that selection graph. So you can use this in various ways, but this is one way of using this.